What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news and discussion. This time we do have some new Beyond Light content to discuss, not so much in the form of huge reveals, but more insights into the next expansion, interesting teases, and pointers to how some of the content in Beyond Light is going to work. And also the bigger vision for what Bungie are calling an expansion trilogy over the next couple of years. This does come in the form of a new interview with Justin Truman from Bungie that went up on the Chinese website GameCores. Actually, inside of the video, we got a couple of cinematics of areas that we haven't seen yet on Europa. There's one example right here, much closer up to that huge kind of satellite dish on the surface of the moon. Really looking forward to getting an icy location again. But another one right here where we can see kind of heavy snow and what appears to be characters walking around in the space. Of course, it's cool to see even very small snippets of that new location. But getting more into the Q&A that they had inside of the video, which he does answer in English, by the way. We'll try and keep the format initially because he starts out by summarizing the major beats moving toward and even beyond November of this year with Beyond Light. So he said that the story they've been building in Destiny 2 is about the approaching darkness. And he speaks about the ending of vanilla Destiny 2 when the Traveler sent out this huge burst of energy, ultimately being sensed by the distant pyramid ships. He goes on to say, of course, last year with Shadowkeep, we first encountered a pyramid ship on the moon and spoke directly with the darkness. And then moving forward to Season of Arrivals, the pyramids have started to dominate skylines. But importantly, he says that this tension will continue to build all the way up to the release of Beyond Light. He speaks about the fact that on Europa, we're going to meet Aramis, which is exactly how he pronounces the name, by the way. I was slightly uncertain about how to pronounce it, but it describes Aramis as the leader of an empire of fallen, and she's been learning how to harness the power which comes directly from the pyramid ships. And that we'll soon come to know our only way to defeat Aramis and the new House of Darkness itself will be to learn how to harness the power of Stasis as well, which he does point out is the first new damage type that has been released into Destiny since D1 launched. He talks more about Stasis in a moment, but Bungie have announced what he describes as a trilogy of expansions, so giving a bit more detail, of course we'll go to Europa in Beyond Light and learn more about how to wield the darkness. But he says next year, a villain will step from the shadows in the Witch Queen. And then in 2022, Lightfall will release with a climatic showdown between the light and the dark. This is a little bit of extra context that we get from his descriptions, of course. And really they're giving us confirmation of that major villain being the focus for the Witch Queen. It's safe to say that there always is a villain in Destiny, but presumably is going to be aligned much more with something like the Taken King, where that villain in the story completely sort of dominates the expansion. And quite likely that is going to be with Savathun, of course. But importantly, he said Bungie are committing to telling this story as a trilogy over the next couple of years. And I guess that really works in the same way that the story is built between Shadowkeep and Beyond Light. It's going to do this in a much bigger way over the next 3 expansions. And if we add to this what Luke Smith said recently about Stasis abilities slowly being acquired by other enemy types, perhaps in different places and with different effects, I think it stands to reason that the influence of the darkness is only going to increase as we move toward Witch Queen and Lightfall. Kind of like the slow arrival of the pyramids, they're pretty much saying that the darkness and its influence and effect will simply spread over time. And so that's going to be one of the main themes over the next year or so especially. One thing about Stasis here is that he says there are a bunch of exciting details about Stasis that they can't wait to show to players soon. They'll be diving deeper into how Stasis is the first damage type that prioritizes battlefield control over pure DPS. And there is a lot to reveal before November. That's a very interesting statement. Of course, from what we've seen, Stasis can freeze targets, you can kind of build platforming opportunities, as well as blocking, cover, and all kinds of things like that. But those are the things that we've spotted outside of presumably the more complex subclass options, perk effects, debuffs, and bonuses that we'll hopefully get inside of the trees for those. Going back to what Justin said about Stasis being the first time that we'll wield the darkness. Based on that statement, players have raised the question about whether we'll see more darkness abilities over time, for Guardians specifically. And again on that subject, thinking back to Luke Smith suggesting that other enemy types will acquire Stasis over a period of time, I think it seems reasonable that we'll see those abilities develop over time as Guardians too. To give some extra context about these subclasses from Luke Smith, he said, these ones will be different to how the current subclasses are selected, and they're not going to be locked diamonds, but are going to be a brand new model that allows for much more player choice and flexibility than the current Arc, Solar, and Void subclasses have. And he points out that that was a really important element of the Stasis subclass for the team, and it'll be a different way to customize Guardians than what we have today. And once again, that definitely sounds positive, Luke Smith had also mentioned the possibility of looking at current subclasses in the game later on, and seeing whether they could be broken out into much more customizable diamonds like what we're going to have with Stasis, although for now, Stasis will definitely be the focus. And so I think it's interesting at least to get a bit of Bungie's perspective there on what these releases are really going to be about. And again, it doesn't really give us major reveals, but maybe a little more clarification and confirmation of what we'd hoped would be the case. Then of course there will also be some focus around the content that we're going to see in Year 4. And as we discussed in a video a couple of weeks back, in Season 13 we're supposed to be seeing more of the Cosmodrome updated, as well as all of the original strikes, so it seems fairly likely that the Season 13 content or activity will be focused on Cosmodrome, or at least some of that new content. And then in Seasons 14 or 15, we should be seeing the return of the Vault of Glass as a kind of mid-year raid, with more stuff to come according to Bungie. So it is a slightly separate conversation, but seeing as there will also be a season alongside Beyond Light itself, we'll also have plenty to learn about the seasonal model moving forward, and I think it's becoming more clear that the Content Vault will play an important role in that. They do ask though, in the interview, any surprises left this season, and Justin said that they have a couple more surprises in store, but they're going to wait and let us experience them in game before Beyond Light launches. He also mentions that with the expansion being pushed back, there's going to be more time to help the evacuation and the farewell of the destinations leaving later this year. And of course we know of the Evac phase itself and the quest associated with it, but it makes sense, as he said, a farewell phase is going to be a thing too. And so that's something else that we'll experience this season as well. And so there we go guys, that is what we have to cover today. The only other quick mention, since this is kind of a news video, but if you are grinding for the Solstice armor at the moment, of course there was a problem where armor progression wasn't being multiplied for alternate characters if you started out with the Titan armor set. But Bungie Help have said this issue has been resolved, and players will now receive the correct progression multipliers when completing the magnificent Solstice armor sets across multiple characters. And of course if you are farming across multiple characters, this means that we don't have to complete every single objective again for every single set, which is a definite positive, so just a quick update on that one since we were speaking about it the other day. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the Beyond Light and Year 4 stuff. I thought there was some pretty interesting conversation there, so be sure to give us your thoughts on any of the things we've spoken about down below. Also get subscribed to the channel. We are anticipating getting more official details from Bungie, and of course, much more in-depth information about the expansion, so feel free to turn on notifications here on the channel if you do want to keep up to date. But if you've enjoyed this one, a rating down below very much helps me out, and I'd love to read your thoughts in the comment section. But otherwise, thanks for watching guys, and I hope you have an awesome day.